Disney has posted mixed results for its fiscal third quarter, plagued by streaming woes and hefty restructuring costs. Subscriber losses continued over the last 3 months, with the company reporting a 7.4% decline from the previous quarter. That's a more substantial loss than Wall Street had expected. On Wednesday, Disney announced it joined the streaming fight against password sharing, just like Netflix did earlier this year. But there was good news as well for the company, as its parks, experiences and product divisions saw a 13% increase in revenue, especially for its international parks and products. For more on this now, let's go to Josh Mahoney, his Chief Market Analyst at Scope Markets in London. Thank you very much for joining us today. So when they started offering the streaming services, they all did it at very unsustainably low prices. I mean, the Netflix of the world and the Disneys of the world as well. And now these prices are being realigned. How are users going to react, in your opinion, especially at a time of rising cost of living that makes people very sensitive to any sort of price increase?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Look, ultimately, the story behind these numbers is price increases. And you're right to allude to some people are, of course, very sensitive to those price increases. But it's very different, I would say, on the subscriber side of things for the streaming business than it is on the park side of things. Park prices are already very high and revenues, of course, increasing on that side of the business. But that's by and large because they keep raising prices. On the streaming side of the business, we're seeing a significant drop off in terms of subscriber numbers. You know, as you alluded to on a percentage basis, it doesn't necessarily sound that bad. You're talking about over 11 million people that stopped subscribing. So the question mark is, do they make up for that by raising prices? And at which point does that increase in price then just drive down the subscriber base once again? So relatively worrying times on the subscriber side of things, because ultimately that was the side of the business that people had hoped was going to really dramatically grow year on year. It feels like that has now reached a peak. And so they have to try and find a way to raise revenues. At the moment, that seems like they're just going to raise prices.
Right, and as you say, it is a story about price increases, right? But in your opinion, will this be sufficient to reduce the loss on the streaming services as well, or are other hikes expected?
I think, to be honest, it's likely we're going to have to continue to see hikes. I mean, look, there's got to be some sort of sweet spot. Personally, for me, I don't necessarily find as much attraction for the likes of the Disney streaming service compared to Netflix, because I just think there's more content being provided on Netflix on a continual basis to incentivize you to stay on with that service. It feels like the Disney product is the kind of thing you're going to take for a period of time and ultimately drop off. And that's exactly what we're seeing now in terms of subscriber numbers being cut. So look, they're probably going to raise prices again some point down the line, but ultimately, I don't necessarily think it's going to benefit them too well, because it runs the risk of really driving people away, and we just see further drop-offs in terms of the subscriber numbers.
Right, very difficult, especially at a time when Hollywood is on strike over those low compensations. Josh Mahoney, thank you very much. And now let's get to other top business stories from around the world. China has lifted pandemic-era restrictions on group tours to a slew of countries, including the US, UK, Australia, South Korea and Japan. The country's Culture and Tourism Ministry says group tours will resume to more than 70 destinations with immediate effect, giving a boost to travel stocks. The move could accelerate a recovery in the global tourism industry. Global rice prices surged to their highest point in almost 12 years following India's rice export ban and extreme weather conditions that could impact production. The Food and Agriculture Organization's All Rice Price Index for July rose by 2.8% to 129.7 points. The grain is vital to the diets of billions in Asia and Africa and contributes as much as 60% of the total calorie intake. And Honda has reported better than expected first quarter earnings, thanks to strong sales of motorcycles and cars, primarily in the North American market. Net profit at Japan's second largest car maker jumped more than twofold in the April to June period from a year ago, reaching $2.5 billion. Earnings were also boosted by a weaker yen.